Hello everyone and welcome back to the Simpson Associates Big Analytic Query. It's great to have you, and today we are joined once again by Rob Constable. Rob, welcome back to the show, and we're going to be talking about Agentic AI today. But first, Rob, for those who weren't or haven't watched the previous video, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, so my name is Rob Constable, so I'm lead data scientist at Simpsons. I head up the data science and AI technology theme at Simpsons, and I sort of head up the sort of cross-sector delivery team for data science.
Sounds like you know what you're talking about then, which is always a good start. As I said, we're going to be talking about Agentic AI, so why don't you start with the simple question, what is Agentic AI? Explain it to me like I've never heard it before.
Sure. Agentic AI is sort of geared towards and talking about more complex AI systems which have sort of further degrees of autonomy. So an agentic system is an AI system which is able to decide how it solves a problem as defined by a user's sort of prompt or query. So I mean, there's more kind of succinct definitions than that. So there's the idea that anything that's more agentic sort of hands off more of the control flow decision making of an application to an LLM, to a large language model. So yeah, more of the decision making of how to do things is determined by the AI and not the user, and it's not hard coded in the logic of the application. And then sort of agentic AIs, they typically have attributes which you don't see in other types of applications. So you might see the use of tools by an LLM or a model. You might see the implementation of memory, persistent context that the model looks at in one form or another, be it from a sort of vector database or some sort of a state memory storage that the application sort of persists. And also agents sometimes work in a loop. So they might work in a kind of agentic loop where you kick them off and they don't kind of stop processing and trying to answer your question until, you know, some sort of stopping conditions are met. So yeah, more complicated AI, basically, I would say.
It sounds like there's a lot of different things. And how does that differ to generative AI?
Yeah. So sort of agentic AI has kind of emerged at the end of a bit of history, a bit of recent history in sort of, growing complexity of AI systems. So with the sort of Gen AI revolution, we started off with, things like GPT-2, which is a sort of a large language model where you could ask questions of the model, ask it to produce content for you, and it would generatively answer, right? So it would produce text output probabilistically in response to a user question. From there, we kind of moved on to like RAG architectures. So this is like very simple compound AI systems where you've got a model now talking to a vector database or other forms of persistent knowledge that are much larger than the model can hold within its context window. So the context window is like the working memory of the AI, basically. So yeah, you have RAG architectures, you can store your business knowledge in a database, and then when you ask a question, the model can look at that data and sort of use that to create a generative answer. So that's the initial sort of compound AI. Agentic AI kind of builds on that idea with some of those things I sort of spoke about. So the idea of tool use, so allowing an LLM as part of an answer to a question to connect to APIs, to connect to simple tools like a code interpreter or a calculator or a set of predefined functions that do sort of hard-coded processing, and using all of those sort of elements to achieve a goal that you ask it to do. And now, we're moving into sort of multi-agent systems where you have a sort of a swarm or a cluster of different agents that are geared towards specific tasks or purposes that sort of coordinate and talk to each other in order to sort of achieve a goal. So yeah, that's the kind of recent history of where we've got to where we are now with the sort of agentic AI concept.
How would you start building the agentic AI? What tools would you use within it, and how does it kind of interact with all the systems?
Yeah. So there's a range of different tools in Azure and from other providers, to build agentic AI systems. A very sort of entry-level, easy one to get started with is Copilot Studio, and the sort of agents feature in that. So that will provide you with a sort of a visual builder, enable you to sort of start defining agents, prompting them, giving them access to knowledge and tools, and even sort of building multi-agent systems. And that's really good for building things which plug into things like Teams or into the sort of Microsoft 365 kind of suite. I think if you're in sort of Fabric or Databricks, you've got a similar kind of data assistant or code assistant kind of functionality in those two platforms. So in Databricks, you've got an AI assistant that helps you write code that's kind of it's a built-in part of the UI, and it's becoming kind of increasingly agentic. But they've also launched a few different features. So they've launched Agent which is again, a sort of low-code agent builder that is geared towards building kind of data agents within the Databricks platform. So once you've got data inside Unity Catalogue in Delta tables, you can build these agents that will allow you to do sort of Q&A over the data. And this feeds into another feature of the platform called the AI BI Genie. So you can create these sort of analyst-focused areas where you can sort of have that kind of Q&A with the data once you've sort of configured it. And on the back end, the AIs are like writing SQL queries to query the tables, which is quite interesting. And that's kind of paralleled in Fabric. So Fabric has a sort of data agents feature as well, where you can set up similarly kind of data agents to query your data once it's in the lake. So I think if you start building more complex things, more custom things, you're going into the Python sort of libraries. So things like LangChain or LangGraph, allowing you to sort of build more complicated compound AI applications and also sort of multi-agent systems as well. And then they need to be sort of hosted, either in a sort of Databricks application or endpoint, or somewhere where you're able to run and host Python, basically, so that you can either integrate the AI with an ETL process for an automation, or expose it through a kind of chat interface to use it as an assistant. So depending on how much of an assistant you may need more or less of a kind of UI or a human in the loop element. But increasingly, we're kind of seeing things being used for fully automated, narrow parts of the ETL process.
And are there any particular ethical considerations you would, consider when using these?
Yeah. So I think in terms of the sort of ethics of doing something in an agentic manner, it's the same as any kind of AI system or usage of ML, where there's the idea of error and having to handle error in one way or another. So I think at the start of any sort of AI projects, if you're starting to think about whether or not to proceed with an agentic approach, you want to understand the impact of getting errors, getting things wrong. Is that something you can tolerate? What's a tolerable error rate, basically? And understand, if we're using an AI, let's say, to decide an outcome for a human, what's the negative impact of that error, that false positive or false negative going to be? Understanding the errors, also understanding the payoff. Like, is it worth actually building something that's a sort of very complicated AI agent system? Is there anything? Is it worth sort of pursuing, basically? And then, more broadly, I think, anytime you're using models that take human attributes as features or decide a human outcome, there's the possibility for biases to be introduced, because obviously LLMs are trained from data. Data sets are not representative of people in society or different demographic groups kind of evenly or equally. So you want to make sure that you're not locking in any kind of biases or unfairness that might be present just in the data that's been used to train it, basically.
And who do you think should be looking to use it and introduce it into their systems? Where's a good use for it?
Yeah, so I think you can, in practice, sort of accelerate or find cost efficiencies in any business process, particularly back office document processing. I think that's a really good area to look within your business for efficiency savings from AI, because
quick and safe win, really.
A quick and safe win, exactly, because you can use the AI to capture a bit of the human reasoning that goes on with those kind of data types and those kind of business processes. So as long as you understand what's meant to happen, you can capture it in a prompt and engineer a prompt. You're sort of well placed to build an AI that will capture that human reasoning and mimic it accurately, which is what you're looking to do. And then, you could speed up all kinds of sort of back office processes, in HR or finance. When we're doing sort of projects with, some of the sort of public sector clients that we work with, they've got quite important back office things that they do. So obviously the police are sort of reading a lot of criminal intelligence and having to pass that into intel reports. Local authorities are making decisions about children and how they should be handled if they're in care or if they've got kind of special educational needs. All of that has, a lot of documentation associated with it. It needs to be read and sort of processed. So you can sort of pick off these elements of the business process and the workflow that might be bottlenecks, and use the AI to scale them up and do them at a lower cost or more accurately or with less man hours or less person hours.
Well, thank you very much. That sounds very helpful and a lot to think about, especially. And thank you very much for watching. If you want to catch up on any of our other videos, including Rob talking about other forms of AI, then why don't you check out our channel, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, bye.
Bye.